Greetings, everyone. This is Jeremy Stone, and I'm just here to make a brief introduction to everyone. We have a huge turnout of former trustees and current trustees, as well as big fans of the Art Institute alumni and current student community. And we're also proud of our MFA students and eager to see this installment of the virtual Vernissage exhibition. I'm here wearing many hats as a former staff, former visiting faculty, and current board member. And it brings me so much pleasure to see all of the work and to appreciate how hard the last year has been and what amazing work everyone has done in spite of all of the challenges. So I can't wait to start. I'm going to introduce Lindsey White, who's our faculty moderator, and she is going to take it away.
Hi, I'm Lindsey White. I'm the assistant professor and photography chair here at SFAI. Welcome to part 2 of the virtual Vernissage, where we will showcase the work of all of these amazing graduates, our 2020 MFA artists and MA scholars. Last week, we were graced with the brilliance of MC John Priola and the incredible talents of our graduate students. And this week, we have another group of exceptionally talented artists, recent 2020 SFAI MFA graduates, and top-notch humans, don't forget. I know all of the faculty, staff, students, and the SFAI community are deeply inspired by all the hard work. And this year's MFA graduates are offering up to the world. As we all know, it's been a bonkers semester with many interesting twists and turns. However, I do think it's an exciting and crucial time to be an artist, and we're living through a historical moment as we all sit here on Zoom together over and over again, talking about the historical moment that we're living in. But we're not only experiencing a global pandemic, but we're also experiencing a racial and institutional reckoning of exciting proportions, I think. And we need artists more than ever. And as we know, artists can be agents for change and interrogating and reflecting some of the most important issues of our times. So let me outline tonight's event for you. We have some housekeeping rules. Each artist will be giving a 3-minute presentation of their work. Immediately after each presentation, if anyone has a burning question for the artist, they can ask it right away and the artist will answer in under 1 minute. Otherwise, people can ask questions in the chat, which will be posed by me to the relevant artists during our Q&A breakout points. So we'll have about 6 artists sharing, then we'll have a Q&A, and then you can ask your questions then. Reminder, please do not record or take screenshots without explicit permission from the artist of their works. And we're going to kick off tonight's event with none other than Juliana Funkhouser.
Thank you, Lindsey. Yay! In addition to all these historical moments we're in, I'd also like to acknowledge that today is possibly the first hurricane of hurricane season in the Caribbean. Tropical storm might be Hurricane Isaiah. And without further ado, I'd like to, everybody wave if you can hear me, and then I'll share my screen. Thank you. Share, all right, thanks very much. Hi, my name is Juliana Funkhouser, and today I'm presenting a project titled Aftermath. The technical foundation of this work is a max batch built to enable live performances as well as drive the audio for a 4-channel sound art installation. Randomized elements within this computer program are based on numerical data sets detailing information about Puerto Rico, such as exit traffic and mortality estimates following the 2017 hurricane season. Sonically interpreted data are mixed with recordings from daily life on the island, including the song of the coqui and conversations during a blackout at a restaurant. The installation is an ode to those who have moved on or who have survived to tell the tale in the wake of catastrophic events exacerbated by negligent disaster response. Slow and underfunded aid efforts to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, which made record-breaking destructive landfall across the Caribbean in fall 2017, have left islanders without standard medical treatment and electricity for months. In rural areas, over 100-year-old power generation systems crumbled, leaving residents in the country without electricity for over a year. Depending on how the statistics are interpreted, fatalities due to complications in the wake of this extreme weather event were contested, ranging anywhere between 16 and over 5,000 deaths. The severity of infrastructural erosion and wildly inconsistent reporting related to this event in mainstream US news sources between fall 2017 and 18 speak to legacies of dismissive colonial attitudes regarding the territory. Instability in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria forced many Puerto Ricans to relocate to mainland USA, joining the 1 in 30 displaced people around the world living outside their birthplace due to natural disasters. Aftermath explores aspects of resilience, isolation, infrastructural collapse, and decay in the wake of the island's storm of the century. The details of this installation are rooted in a specific place and time, but at the heart of this work is an invitation for anybody to join me at the table for a conversation in the aftermath. My hope is that we'll be celebrating each other's presence again one day, but at least we can share this moment together online right now. Thank you very much.
Woo!
Yay.
Thanks, Juliana.
Thank you. Here's I'll paste some information about my website and stuff in the chat.
Perfect. And I don't see any burning questions quite yet, so I'm going to keep moving on. Next up, we have Becca Chacon.
All right. Hi, everyone. I like what Juliana said. Wave if you can hear me. Awesome. All right. Okay. Well, my name is Becca Chacon, and I'm excited to show you some of the work that I've been doing in the past 2 years at SFAI. My work is an investigation of identity. I begin by recalling a memory and expressing through movement deep-rooted emotion. The abstract psychological landscapes are constructed of many layers of paint, medium, and graphite line. These markings are the language in which I communicate my memory. The active act of painting large-scale work brought me in and out of memory, and some surfaces are malleable like paper, and other surfaces are solid like wood. I paint a piece as one, and then I pull it apart and I rearrange it and I put it back together again. This process allows me to understand more about how memory presents itself. Some memories are vivid and connected, while others are dull and distant. For example, here in Dress Up in the Woods, I remember a happy memory in my childhood. I grew up going to my grandfather's cabin and I'd perform plays. I also use collage as a form of reconstructing memory. These are images from that time in the cabin, and these pictures are the evidence. Sometimes evidence, if we don't have a memory of it, the pictures are the evidence of that memory. Then as I dug deeper, I asked why some of these memories are forgotten or missing. And my history is one of assimilation. As a form of ritual, I use pattern to ask the question over and over again. Sometimes I find the answer, while other times I only find more questions about my history. I want to know more about the root of the layers and my memories and my identities. When I dress up or apply layers of makeup, I perform an identity, although most times I feel inadequate. Like Frida Kahlo wrote on a sketch of hers, appearances can be deceiving, and so can the human body. Abstraction was really the beginning of the exploration of me asking these questions about my memory and my identity. And as I went through the process, I began to understand the complexity of identity and being a woman of mixed race who lives in between these binaries. So just getting more and more deeper questions. It's through art in which I am in constant search for a place, a home for all my layers to reside within. So here's my information. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Becca. We have a couple of burning questions for you.
Sure.
We have a question from Christopher Coppola. Was your grandfather an artist?
He wasn't. He was actually a state assemblyman. He was a politician.
Wow.
But he definitely influenced me. They introduced me to Frida Kahlo when I was a child, and that was the first time I saw a Mexican female artist. So I was right off the bat inspired.
Thank you. One more question.
Sure.
Do you choose your color palette for your abstract pieces?
I do. So I select specific colors. As I got more mature with my color choices, I chose more of these like vibrant colors. And so I chose like this Indian yellow is probably one of my favorite colors to use. But now it's hard to kind of like bring down the color palette. But yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. So next up we have Miles Stemp.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking time. Can you hear me? Wave? If you can hear me, I like that. Okay, great. Can you see Wave as well? See the video? Nice. Okay, lovely. All right. Thanks so much for taking the time. I just want to, this is a brief overview, as you might have noticed from the presentation, but I'm just going to, if you want to have more information about my work, please feel free to visit my website. It's down at the bottom and places and stuff like that, so you can go check it out. It's free to check out. And if you want to buy something, let me know. Just send me an email. Anyway, moving on. At the top of my work, I'm curious, and I'm interested in pointing things out. And this curiosity turns into that, and saying, hey, that's cool, that's interesting, that's fascinating. It's like, look at that a little bit more. And I do this through taking things apart. Like I take apart concepts and metaphors or objects themselves and exposing their innards or recontextualizing them into something new. Usually creating a system that points back in on itself. And I am absolutely fascinated with systems. I love them. I love perfect systems where something completes itself, like positive feedback loops. I'm in love with them. And I only really discovered this recently when I was actually researching for aquaponics. And you haven't looked at aquaponics, it's fascinating stuff. But I realized when I was looking at this, like, oh yeah, I love when things feed in on themselves. This is amazing. I usually describe my work, I used to describe my work as an Ouroboros, but I realized that analogy was far too negative, and it's not a thing that's consuming itself. It's a thing that's regenerating and completing itself. It's a regenerative process and not a destructive process. And and to that intent, I provide a non-authoritative, non-emotional, and fact-based reflections that are multi-layered. And I want to trigger something in the viewer that makes them pause and reflect. And with that, I use minimalism as a gateway for mindfulness, requesting that you stop and think about nothing for a second, or anything but the world, kind of thing. It's the same way if you hit yourself in the head with a foam panel, you actually, like, your brain turns off for a second, not like long enough, like not hard enough to like knock yourself out, but like enough to like shock yourself. Like, it's actually kind of amazing that you kind of exist in the world. You don't think anymore, and that's kind of like what I'm thinking about. I mean, full disclosure at this point, I do carry crystals in my pocket. It's because I believe in the healing properties of crystals, but I believe in the placebo healing properties of crystals. And that's why I'm interested in rethinking minimalism in my personality and in my artwork. I have this hybridized sort of version of like this hybridization of like strict, no nonsense science and scientific theory on the one hand. On the other hand is new age, holistic, we are one with the universe spirituality. And I'm trying to merge together those two thoughts and those two like aspects of my personality in my work. And to that end, I want to make work that is sort of a visual brain freeze, that's striking, haunting, numbing. Thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate everyone taking the time. Thank you.
Thanks, Miles. Your visual of hitting yourself in the face with foam is stuck with me.
I highly recommend it.
We have a burning question here. How do you select the letters and number of letters in Pile of Nothing?
It was arbitrary, but it was just more of like an interest in getting a pile. It was 4,000 characters, spelling out nothing, 400 times.
Wow. We have another burning question. Do you start with the written word before you proceed in realizing? I am feeling you start with an equation.
Yeah, I think I start with the idea, really. You know, it's usually written because it's always like kind of text in my mind. It's like a phrase that kind of triggers something, or like something I hear from listening to Radiolab or something like that. Something that like I absorb like a sponge in the world.
Great. Thanks so much, Miles. Woo! Weird silent clapping in Zoom. All right, let's see. Who do we have next? Next up, we have Mónica Coelho. Mónica.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Go to the beginning. Can you also wave if you can see me and hear me? Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to present two projects to you. The first one was the one I chose to present in the final exhibition, and is this one. It's called Guideline Series. You have here number 3, 4, 5, and 7, but in a different order. They were all made in 2019, and they're all mixed media drawing and cyanotype on paper, and approximately 11 by 9 inches. Okay. The Guideline Series is a group of drawings that play on the idea of blueprints, thinking of guidelines, instructions, laws, or culture, grids, set parameters, photo versus drawing, and expected versus planned, and expectations versus reality. The space where the chairs are is defined in two different ways, and in most of them there's two pairs of chairs. And this is to question what lines are drawn first and what lines are drawn second, and if the things that are drawn first are the ones that we should be guided from, or if the things that are drawn second are the ones correcting those lines, and so the ones to be followed. So is it the plan more important than the accident, or is it the other way around? The drawings were made from a photo, part of the installation waiting line. And in some of them, I started by using the photo to make a cyanotype and then a drawing on top. But in most of them, I draw first, copying the photo, and then made a cyanotype on top. So I went into cyanotype because I was working on the concept of waiting, and in cyanotype, it's really interesting that you have to wait in the sunlight. And I was thinking of how the sun is a way to count time passing, the daytime, the hours, for example. And I used the chairs because I had previously made them for an installation called Waiting Room. This one, where a room is surrounded by chairs. You enter a room and all around you are chairs, these chairs. And they are there instead of people. They are the ones waiting forever because no one can sit. And they are also fighting the need and the common knowledge and the automatic response to sit when entering a waiting room and being surrounded by chairs. And the chairs are like a skeleton left behind, a structure that doesn't allow what it was made for. They are not all equal, they're all similar and made the same way, but if you stay in the room long enough, you start seeing that some of them seem more relaxed than others, as if each of them was a different person, an individual person. And these are my contacts and information.
Thanks, Mónica.
Thank you, Mónica.
We have a burning question here. Do you bring your own memories and emotions to your own waiting?
When I'm waiting, you mean? Or yes, I mean, this started from a very specific place, a waiting room in an hospital, but then it dragged me into thinking of waiting in general and waiting moments in life, and in that way, yeah, more my waiting moments.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, Mónica. That was great.
Thank you.
Okay, we have up next is Blanca, Bercial, García-Bayllo. Woo! Blanca. Blanca, are you there? This is the singing that Christopher Williams wanted. Blanca, are you there?
My internet just broke for a second.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm here.
Blanca. Oh, we have some burning questions for you. Did you collect these sounds over time?
The sounds are part of the performance that I did for the thesis from which I graduated. So I did like 4 different iterations of one sound walk. And this is just a clip of an hour recording. Yeah.
Great. I think that's all the burning questions we have for now. Oh, have you shown your work in different public platforms?
I haven't shown this work because the audios, I kept them for myself, and what I did was transcribing the sounds into symbol-based scores. So I haven't shared all the audios that I have collected yet. I'll work with them later.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Blanca.
Thank you so much.
Make sure everyone's getting all the comments in the comment section too. There's a lot. Everyone is praising your artwork as you speak. All right, next up we have Christopher Williams. Christopher.
Hi, thank you. How you guys doing tonight? Well, I want to dedicate this moment to my sister and her beautiful fiance. And Sarah, I'm very proud of you. You got a happy brother. All right, so my name is Christopher Williams, and my artwork is about the discovery of Black joy. And you can see my website up top, ChristopherAdamWilliams.com. So my work is about skin tone of African Americans, the beauty behind the skin tone, the luster behind the skin tone, how our skin radiates like onyx, purples. I love to paint my subjects as superheroes, icon-driven, just in all its beauty and all its glory. And a lot of the things I like to do also is take bits and pieces of biblical stories and make them into modern times. For example, this one, Queen of Sheba and Queen Esther. A lot of my work as well took time to evolve at SFAI, which was telling a story through video, which I never really done before. And I wanted to see what it would be like to probably perform and talk about the African diaspora, the pain that we go through, as well, of course, the joy. And sometimes I do work that's political, but not always. And this one's called Disruptive, Disrespectful, and Rude. And this has to do with a lot of things that I went through being discriminated for the last few years, along with, you know, seeing things in times like these, COVID times, with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. But I try not to talk about pain too much. I try to get past it. And I try to then focus more on the beauty of my friends, family, and wife, who I really adore, really respect, and how these women in the family are so strong. And if you see these formed columns here, this is actually based on Tanzanian wood carvings. And so what I like to do is make these iconic paintings of my friends and family. And just to backtrack for just a second, these pieces are actually based on Augusta Savage from the Harlem Renaissance, Lived Every Voice. And so what I decided to do was just paint my friends and family in individual morph-like states, showing the different emotions that you know, my friends, family go through, especially women of color. And I decided to create my own family tree. And this is Lived Every Voice, part 1 through 5. And I wanted to connect these as Augusta Savage did back in the 1920s, which was her heart, but Lived Every Voice. I also like to make fun but serious iconic paintings of Greek mythology by interjecting the black body. This is Atlas, and this has to do with ALS. Also like to paint what some people may call confrontational paintings, which in the Black culture, meaning if you look at someone, you show them respect, you look them in the eye. And so it's a respect thing. And so I'm doing a series now based on the black man in my life, the strong black man in my life. And that's ongoing. There we go. And this is my most recent piece, which is behind me. I just finished. I'm always working. If you ask my wife, she'll say it, but I don't do the dishes. But this is called Sleeping Angels, oil on canvas. And this is my ongoing, you know, discovery on what it means to be a Black artist and what it does it mean to be joyous and have Black joy. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I believe there are some burning questions. Can you please share about the use of gold leaf in your work?
Oh, yes. When I went to Venice with Mark Van Proyen and Jennifer Risler, I was inspired by a lot of the more architecture and a lot of the, you know, the paintings that were hanging around that just blew my mind. And when I went to Portugal, I saw a similar narrative. And I'm like, I have to learn how to gold leaf, and I have to learn how to, you know, really express and learn more about this, you know, Catholic type painting. So that's where that came from.
Thank you. There's another question here. Can you speak about her feet backing into the painting?
Okay, yes. So I'm going to turn this here without knocking over my screen. So this is part 1 of 2. What's connected, which you guys don't see off screen, there's another painting, which is Hazel. Just Hazel, Layla's on the side, and it's my nieces, but they're 2 connected. So it's a big, long painting. So it's about 123 inches long when you connect them. And I call it Sleeping Angels because I wanted to tell a story about the Oklahoma City bombing. I want to talk about like the bombings in churches and how you know, little girls and were pretty much their life was taken from them during these heinous crimes. And so I wanted to depict you know, these 2 as beautiful angelic creatures, because they are, to talk about the narrative of you know, death.
Someone is also asking if you can show us the right side of that painting as well.
Oh, the right side? Okay, so, okay, hold on. Give me 10 seconds. It is not done. It is still in rough stages. And I have a small room. But this is it right here. And so the feet connect, so you can see Hazel's feet on that side. And yeah.
Thank you.
Very well.
A real studio visit. There was one last burning question, and that was if you are going to make more videos.
That's probably Zaina who asked that question. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I love painting, and I just was really like inspired over the summer and really had a lot of things on my heart that I really couldn't express in words. So I performed them in the video pieces, but I don't know, Zaina. So.
It wasn't
ask that question.
Oh, was it? Okay, was it Zaina? Okay, whoever it was, thank you for the question. I apologize. But I really don't know. I really don't know.
Allison Woods asked that question.
Oh, Allison. Okay. Sorry, Allison. I love you.
And what music inspires you?
Music. Wow. Two types of music. It's weird. So I could go gospel, old school gospel, Take Six, Winans, Commission, John P. Key, and then hip hop, Mos Def. Is my favorite. Jay-Z, Eminem. I could rock. It just depends on my mood, but I either go gospel or hip hop. It's weird. Maybe I can mesh it. Gospel, hip hop. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yes, and my wife said Amaro Del Negra, which, yes, that is true. I love reggae. So, yes.
I think we've reached our halfway point and so we're opening up our Q&A for all the artists that you just saw. We had a lot of burning questions out there, but I'm sure there are more questions that you have for Juliana, Becca, Miles, Mónica, Blanca, and Christopher. And if you don't, I do.
I saw Christopher asked me later if I have a personal connection with Puerto Rico, and I do. My mother's Puerto Rican, and growing up, I spent half the year in Puerto Rico and then half the year in New England. So yeah, and I go back anytime I can. I try to go at least once or twice a year, depending on what's going on, but it's been impossible lately. So for a variety of reasons. So it's been on my mind a lot. Thanks for asking that question.
And thanks for bringing that one back up. I had that one marked.
I have a question for Becca Chacon. Becca, when you said somebody introduced you to Frida, they introduced you to her artwork, right? Mm-hmm. Not to Frida. Okay, because I thought, oh, she met Frida.
No, Frida passed.
Okay, that's what I thought. She died like 3 months before after I was born. So I don't even get to be her reincarnation. Okay.
No, she's long since passed.
Yeah, I was born in 54 and she died in 54, but she died, like I said, I was already born 3 months when she died. She died in October and I was born in May, so, okay. Thank you for telling me. Frida was my teacher. She was the teacher of my teacher.
Wow, that's exciting.
The teacher of my teacher, so that's why I asked. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question for Mónica. Is your degree in sculpture?
I answered in the chat, but it's not. It's in studio art.
Oh, I see. And then we have a question. How can all of these artists be advocators for the, I'm going back down. Wait, what's the end of that? Oh, SFAI going forward with our community and beyond. Let me read that again. How can all of these artists be active advocates for SFAI going forward with our community and beyond? Anyone want to take that one?
Well, I would say, you know, coming together as a community and really supporting each other. You know, that's the biggest thing, is support. You know, we all have different personalities. We all fight at times, but, you know, we look at each other as family. We can move forward to, you know, support each other and try to keep hope alive, try to keep the school alive, and, you know, do art in the process.
Miles, I saw you raise your hand. Were you going to comment too?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I guess, I mean, we just kind of work together. I mean, it's sort of a similar thing to what Chris is saying, but, you know, work forward and work hard.
I think also too, we learned so much in the 2 years that we've been here, and some of us, I know some of the students here were here for undergrad as well. So I think SFAI is definitely embedded into how we think conceptually and how we make and create. So I think just by moving forward in our own artistic careers, we will be representing SFAI because it's a part of us and how we make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like to think of SFAI as part of a big community of artists in the world. And I've been sharing a lot with my undergrad community, what I've been learning about how to, I'm involved with a bunch of teachers groups, for example, with my my undergrad school, and like I've been trying to share what I've learned and like from my peers and also my professors, and like how to deal with, for example, moving everything to online, or also just sort of deal with and tackle education in a way that isn't necessarily it's more artistic and artistically focused, and like with all different mediums. There's a lot of stuff that was done at SFAI that was very different from where I went to undergrad. So it's been an eye-opener for a bunch of my peers there. And like I was talking about earlier, like I gave a talk with a game. I'm working back in video games now, and I gave a talk with a local group in Boston, and I've been sharing and connecting with other alums from SFAI through that group too. So like he's into education as well, and so we're using it outside of artist communities as well, but like in work too.
I'm hoping that once we are past these COVIDian times, we can all come together in a conversation in person, actually, at the Chestnut campus, and continue this conversation.
I think we need to remember that the heart of SFAI and artistic creativity is the engagement with the possibilities of whatever freedom is. And we've done that for a long time and in a special way, which hopefully can expand. And I think we need to think very positively about the future, because there is one. And now is the time to celebrate all the achievements today, our recognition of that incredible energy. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Jeremy. Woo!
Sorry, I had a question for Miles, because I feel like your work, I'm still thinking about your work, so it's fairly provocative, right? And I'm wondering if there's a political undertone to your work, and also just understanding maybe how it will evolve over the next couple of years. Could you maybe share a little bit more about that? Pardon me if I change the narrative.
I'm always thinking about your work, Kev. So it's haunted me. Yeah, I think that I don't know how it's going to evolve. It's so hard for me to I don't have really a path that it necessarily like follows, but I think that like investing in actual systems, like I'm I really want to make something super self-sufficient somehow, solar or wind, and then maybe some fish and some plants. Maybe aquaponics are probably going to be involved in it somehow. That's probably going to happen. And what that means in a future, like maybe it turns on a light or something, a light box or something like that. Like there's a lot of possibility.
I see another question in the chat for Becca. Do you have other Latina characterizations to explore in a "This is what a Latina looks like" series? That was very elegant.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just actually going to type it. I'm actually looking at images of women that I grew up with who have influenced me. I grew up about 20 minutes from the Mexican border in San Diego, so southern San Diego. And so I was entrenched in the Mexican culture. So I actually just went on a lot of my girlfriends at the time, their Instagram, and it's honestly just going off of memory of the women and the mothers and the I grew up mostly with like the like a lot of like the upper class Mexicans that had homes both in San Diego and in Mexico, and so I kind of just knew like the like the higher, I don't know, like the all about appearance kind of culture sometimes, and it's not all negative, it's positive too, but yeah, so those are kind of the women I was thinking about that I felt very distant from, because I am Mexican, but I don't speak Spanish and I don't live in Mexico. So I felt very like, I felt like the white girl with all of my Mexican friends. And so it just, I don't know, just kind of looking at them for inspiration.
You're diasporic Mexican.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just have about a minute left here. There are any final questions that people have? You can throw them into the chat. If not, I'm going to ask Mónica a question. You said in your talk, you were talking about plans versus accidents. And I wrote down, is the plan more important than the accident?
I don't know, but I think it's important to know the plan to kind of see the accident. But that's a question that I've been asking for a long time. Which one is more powerful, the set plan or the accident?
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like being an artist is just kind of one happy accident? That's how I feel.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of our Q&A for this group. Thank you all for sharing. Another round of applause. Next up, we have Jane Yuan.
Hi.
Jane.
Okay. My art is about Japanese myths. Mythology is my topic. I hope that my audience can feel the power of these myths. Ryunosuke Akutagawa is one of my inspirations. He wrote many short stories. He lived at the turn of the century between the, during this time. And this is one myth based on his writings. It's called The Spider's Thread. And then this image is a myth about a young man named Takeo who possesses the ability to hear everything that is going on inside of his household. Sketching is my favorite method. I often use ink pen, and this is my artistic medium. Sometimes I draw outline drawings, and sometimes I also use watercolor and pencil. And recently in my work, I have been adding outlines in color to my black and white drawings. And here's another myth based on another short story by the same author. And in this story, it's about a villager who puts up a sign in his village that on a certain day of the month, a dragon would rise from the pond. So I take inspiration from these stories. And I want to explore identity and character of Japan and Japanese people. I think there's a special beauty. And lastly, I want my audience to be interested in the myths I tell, and that my depiction is accurate. And this is my more recent drawing.
Thank you, Jane. That was wonderful. A lot of inspirational comments in the chat about your work. Make sure to check those out. I don't see any burning questions right off the bat, but we will definitely circle back. Oh, we do have a question. What are your favorite historical Japanese artists?
I like Japanese print artists Kunisada and Hokusai and some other ones. I'm not sure.
And then there's another burning question. Are your drawings connected to your film work?
Slightly. Some film that I've tried to take were of the Cherry Blossom Festival in San Francisco, and I just documented their performances.
Great. Thank you so much, Jane.
Oh, thanks.
Woo. Next up, we have Colin Pollard. Colin.
Hello, everyone. Good. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Awesome. Let me. And is my presentation up on the screen to confirm? Yes. Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone, and welcome, and thank you for coming. My name is Colin Pollard, and I'm an artist currently living and working in my new bedroom garage studio in San Jose at my parents' house. And listed here, you have my website, my Instagram, and my email. So let me see. There we go. So I kind of have 4 major ways of working, and while they're all like really rooted in photography, this work in particular is very much strictly photographic. And you can see more of this work on my website. So I'm going to be fairly quick to go over it. But pretty much all I want to say is that I'm really interested in photographing urban, suburban, and consumer spaces. And I'm also interested in the way in which colors kind of seep through into our everyday experiences. Great, there you go. So these two pieces are both 40 by 30 inches, and they're archival inkjet prints. And with these two in particular, I wanted to take a more painterly approach to my photography and really kind of focus on highlighting the form, the texture, the color, the line, and the shadows, and also experimenting with this idea of depth. And I think actually a better way of saying that is this idea of flatness. These two pieces are my nod at the classic graduate school critique of go big or go bigger. So the piece on the right is titled Sunbath, and that's 60 by 40 inches, and that's a hand-mounted print on MDF. And the piece on the left is titled Fabricated Landscape, and that's also 60 by 40 inches, and it's an inkjet print on fabric. And I've been collecting these fabrics in plastic bags, and I recomposed them in my backyard, and I took the photograph. And I was really interested in making an image that was totally exactly what it was, but while it still kind of alludes to this post-production process. And then to have it printed back onto fabric felt like a full circle moment. Mid-Explosion, which is 2019, and this is a 50 by 40 inch print as well as an installation. And this really was an exercise in color and material. And I'm really interested in this idea of transforming something super mundane and kind of transforming it into something vibrant, flamboyant, and exciting. And here's a detail of that. And as you can see, it's just sheets of ripped up paper on my studio wall. I have some supermarket collages, and please feel free to check out my website where I have these more in detail. All I want to say about this work in particular is that I'm really interested in advertising and the color theory that kind of goes into that, and also this idea of visual stimulation when shopping. And also too, I think a common theme throughout my work is this idea of mass production and then mass consumption. Like, how many different pain medications do you really need? This piece is titled 4,000 Stickers. And here's a detail shot of that. And it's 30 by 44 inches, and it's an inkjet print on dye bond. And something that I'm really interested in with these plastic stickers is that they're visually representing something natural. And then also just kind of thinking about this physical process that I did this all by hand, and then I photographed it, and then it went through a digital process as well. So kind of blurring that line between the physical and the virtual, and then of course having it printed back out onto a physical object. Detail once again. So I also have some video work that's on my website, and once again, my email and my Instagram. So the work that I'm about to talk about is my newest work. So bear with me, and it's very much rooted in process. So pretty much I had made a video piece and I screenshotted one aspect of that, and I blew it up to 30 by 20 inches, and then I painted on top of it in post-production, and then I recollaged a photograph that I had taken on top of it to kind of allude to this depth of space, when in actuality it's printed on a singular surface. The piece on the left is titled Corner Store Flowers, and the piece on the right, Forever and Always. They're both 30 by 24 inches, and they're prints on dye bond. And these are really experimentations to see how far can I take the photograph away from the photograph while still keeping it genuinely intact. So I guess what I'm getting at with that is the composition of the original image is still there. And I can point that out just right here where you see the flower petals still hold true, but then it's been built upon layer upon layer upon layer in post-production, and then it's printed again on a singular surface. And the piece on the right is using a similar technique and a similar process. However, it's much more apparent that kind of like the base photograph acts as the inspiration and the outline to the paintings. Great, and that's my info again. Thank you, everyone. Oh, wait. How do you not share your screen?
Don't you know this by now?
I know, isn't that sad? One day I'll get it, I swear, one day.
We love you, Colin. There's some questions for you in the chat. that were coming up as you were presenting. Are the photos composites?
So yeah, so I think some of them are, and I think I'm really interested in kind of this line. So for example, the first set of photographs, all of them but one is a digital composite, but I'm interested in using this photographic kind of post-production technique and really trying to keep them looking as if it was a found scene. So yeah.
And then Colin, I can definitely see the painting influence. What do you think are the major influences between photography and cinematography? Your photos move in their stillness.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think also kind of as I've been stuck at home, I've become increasingly interested with exploring that kind of line. While in graduate school, I was really focused on photography, which I'm thankful that I was. But kind of as I've been at home, I've been allowing myself to kind of expand on that and think about like a moving image as still photography. And like all of my video work, if you want to go check out my website, all of that starts with photography, and it's very much rooted in everything I do. But then I guess as long story short, I'm interested in expanding on that idea. And just seeing how far a photograph can go.
And do you have a queer theory you subscribe to?
Outlaw representation, I love. It was the first theory book that I'd read. But in terms of artists, I mean, I think like a David Hockney kind of at the very forefront of my artistic career, which is somewhat new, just within the last probably 5 or 6 years. So I really kind of looked to him. And as of right now, I think I'm interested in like the use of color to kind of add to this flamboyant, kind of indulgent aspect to my work, but it's not necessarily something that I'm actively thinking about. But as an artist, it's like your personality comes out in all of your work. So.
Can you say more about your interest in the fragment?
Sorry, what was that?
Can you say more about your interest in the fragment?
Oh, fragment. Yeah, I mean, I think something that I'm really interested in, which kind of as I was kind of organizing this presentation, I started thinking about is like this idea of the copy and paste. And I think at first I was using it as almost a crutch in Photoshop, and I was kind of doing it just to kind of get this visual effect. But the more that I've kind of thought about it, I was a collegiate athlete, so I was a diver. And in that process, you do the same actions over and over and over again. And it really was only as of the last few months that I really started to like dissect that idea. And it starts to make sense on why I'm so interested in the act of kind of copy and pasting.
There's a lot of questions for you. I don't know if I should table one for later. But I think a real burning question is, why is your hair so perfect? And why are you?
So for those that might not know, I've had short hair my entire freaking life, with the exception of last year. So my final semester of graduate school, I was like, now is the time to grow it out. Now is the time. I'm in art school, it's perfect. And I came back from spring break with the hopes that it was going to be a big unveil of my previous hairstyle. And then, of course, the COVID and everything kind of happened. So I guess my big unveil has to be via Zoom.
Yes, that's seemed like
a
burning question.
It's an important one.
I'm going to stop there. I'm going to table Mary Elena's question for later. But
Great, perfect.
Thank you so much, Colin.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Next up, we have Anna Sidana.
Okay. Here we go. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Sidana, and I am so grateful for everyone who's here. Thank you so much for being here. After an intense and extensive career in technology, I came to the arts very late in life. Fortunately, I discovered the San Francisco Art Institute. And over the past few years, I have gone through an experience that can only be described as transformative. Feeling very disconnected in this digital world, my art practice is an exploration into find a deeper relationship with my own childhood and culture. Searching for that connection, I stumbled upon childhood memories of cotton, honeycombs, and pomegranates. So I used these symbols to create conceptual landscapes. My earliest memory is of playing in the cotton fields of Rajasthan, India. And despite the fact that those cotton fields were in the middle of the desert, the sensation I remember is of being blissfully happy, as though surrounded by a lush forest. This panel represents that early stage, and it is titled Soft Landing. I have a few close-ups for you. Delving deeper into the history of cotton revealed an underbelly of British colonialism in India and slavery in the United States. I had not contemplated these darker factors before, but they continue to draw me in and have become the focus of other cotton paintings. And moving forward, as I look back on my youth, I'm reminded of climbing trees and discovering honeycombs. I use this symbol to represent a home, which of course can be a safe haven, but also dark. The darker side is always there. Honeycombs represent the dangers of homes where many atrocities can happen. This panel is titled Sweet Innocence, and I have a few close-ups here for you. And then on to coming of age and puberty. Synonymous with femininity and fertility, the pomegranate is the inspiration to juxtapose the wonders of life against the harshness of entering puberty in a very restrictive culture. This panel, titled Forbidden, exposes and celebrates womanhood in its natural beauty and reality. Here are a few close-ups. These three panels resulted in a triptych that I playfully titled Journey of a Girl Child, and it is 72 inches high and 180 inches wide. This ended up being my final project. And my work continues to be an exploration of what remains unspoken and hidden through these symbols. And this is some more recent work for me. And I want to just take this opportunity to thank all the faculty and staff in SFAI for this incredible experience. And you can find me at annasidana.com or annasidana@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Anna. You have any burning questions out there? I don't see any, but there's lots of love for your paintings. Oh, Anna, how spontaneous is your work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do have a rough idea of where I'm going, but I let the process take over at some point. And a lot of it is gestural, experimental, and fairly spontaneous.
There's another question here. Can you tell us about your use of dripping?
Yeah, I think dripping, I discovered that later in my process, and I just find that so liberating. You know, just as the gestural work is kind of spontaneous, I found dripping completely liberating. And it's just something I find very exciting in my work.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Evan Pettiglow. Are you going to be singing this presentation? Just kidding. Evan. I did get a direct message that you were going to sing presentation, but I don't want to put you on the spot or anything.
Okay, hold on. Let me share the screen. Okay. Can you guys see that?
We see it.
Cool. Okay. So I'm Evan. I got my MFA at SFAI this spring. There we go. Okay. And I work mainly in sculpture and textile. And I'm going to read you a little bit about my practice. Absorbed by the effort and ultimate fruitlessness of memory, I invest in the connections between memory, trauma, and domestic spaces. Driven by understanding formed from loss in childhood, I maintain an acute awareness of the tender aching inherent in remembering and forgetting. The way our worlds are not promised, and yet memory denies this impermanence. I work sculpturally with predominantly textile, glass, clay, metal, and stone, among a wide variety of other sculptural materials, asking, can we reconcile the function of an object and the weight that its functioning holds for our lives? Utilizing domestic spaces and familiar objects as points of entry, I interrogate the way place can stain us. So here is a work from 2019, which is titled, I Can Only Hold What I Can Reach. And something that I think about a lot in my work and in these works that I'll show you, and maybe even more recently than ever, is the way that the places we inhabit are affecting us, and kind of this like dual relationship that like maybe we have a home and we live in that home, but that the home is also like somehow inside of us. And I do a lot of thinking with my work about the way that the places that are meant to be most safe for us can sometimes not feel that way, and the effect that that can have on our relationship to objects and homes or domestic spaces. This is particularly interesting to me right now when all of us are being forced to stay in our homes. And for some people that is a place of safety, but for some people that's not. And so that's sort of what I'm interested in making sculptures about and working through. These are some details of the same piece. This piece is also from 2019. Its title is Crowded Cage, Too Many Keys That Are Mostly Bells. And this piece sits directly on the floor, but is still made of a textile type material. And I think that the thinking that I'm doing with these pieces is just sort of about the way that very specific objects can become these kind of trigger points into larger memories, even if they're just a small piece of a moment or something from my personal life or home. And what I found really interesting through making this work is that everybody seems to have like objects like these or certain, they might connect with a thing in my work that they remember from their childhood or something. And I'm interested in the way that kind of shared memory and domestic spaces can connect us. And this piece is from 2020. Its title is A Cup at My Feet, I Sit Still. And this piece is difficult to see in photographs, but it's relatively large. It's a 4x4x4, like 3D sort of cube shape, and it hangs from the ceiling, but it's made of a thin gold chain. And I'm interested in the way that this sculpture is large, but also very delicate or somehow small, and very light, but also somehow very weighted and dense. And so these are all things that are sort of important to me when I make work. And yeah, there's my website and my email if you'd like to be in touch or see more of my work. Yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Evan. Got a burning question for you. Have you considered doing art pieces that the public has to use, touch, and hold in their everyday life? It seems you are in touch with that.
Yeah, I would be interested in that. I've never made a piece of work that it lives in the public, but I think that that could be exciting for me, to witness other people interacting with the work or connecting in their own ways with it. I personally love seeing art outdoors, so yeah, I'd love to install some work in a public space.
How do you pronounce your surname?
I pronounce it pettiglio, but I think that's sort of an Americanized version of the Italian word. I think normally the G would be silent if we were Italian people.
I didn't pronounce it that way. I have a quick question for you. Can you tell us more about what inspires your titles?
I guess I don't know if there's like a direct inspiration. I also have a writing practice, and I write a lot of sort of poetry or like poetic prose, and usually the titles will come from some writing that I'm working on in tandem, like at the same time as a sculpture that I'm working on. I'll be doing like a lot of thinking and writing while I'm making visual art, and then I'll pull from that practice to title the work.
Weird feedback. What do you hope people take away from your work?
I feel excited when people can connect or maybe like do some ruminating about their own connections with memory, and maybe help them kind of look closer at their relationship to domestic spaces and the places that they inhabit.
Thanks so much, Evan.
Thanks.
Woo! Next up, we have Karl Daum. Karl.
All right. Can you hear me? Yes. Good. No. Okay. Good. Share screen. All right. Keep this quick. So my name is Karl Daum. I was a dual degree at SFAI, but I have now transferred to CCA to complete my MA in Visual and Critical Studies. At SFAI, my work was almost entirely literature, in which I engaged questions of male shame, male vulnerability, and male fragility through sort of the Western tradition with larger than life oil paintings. For Vernissage, I prepared a series of 5 works, monochromatic, of a similar scale, in which I wanted to continue that exploration of the Western tradition and the representation of the body therein through the exploration of light and the role of light. These were called failed attempts in the act of falling up, in which I rendered myself in the failed attempt of falling upwards. Each painting engages light, where in the Western tradition, light was often the work of God to reveal his subjects in a divine space in which he lurked. I looked at light now in our current condition as a means by which ideology circumscribes categorical expectations and identity. I wanted to take that light and apply it to the same questions I had been asking in my earlier work through these paintings. So to render these paintings, it was often a single go, about anywhere between 6 to 13 hours of applying a mixture of maples and, as it's called, Indian yellow on the substrate, and pulling away with a rag to sort of find or reveal the form in an intensive process that produced quite a bit of eye strain and I guess fatigue as well. The ultimate goal with these works was to produce a mirror, something to reckon with, a metaphor of myself or a re-representation of myself over and over again, both achieved in the act of searching and in production or reproduction on the wall. The act of falling sort of figures in as a means by which the ground of certainty can be removed from beneath the subject and from beneath myself, and in an attempt to sort of enhance the effort of abstraction, where that hard line between the yellow and the white is visible. The colors optically quiver, as white and yellow are so close in value, especially not digitally, unfortunately. But and as that recedes into a sort of more blurred edge, sort of that certainty falls away. And yet, despite any effort at abstraction or removing a ground of certainty, ultimately, if one is long enough, they find sort of what they expected to see. And the form, as much as I try to escape myself or try to challenge the categorical identities that circumscribe me, that is what we expect to see is revealed. So my info, my website, my Instagram. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Karl. There was a question here that had to do with thinking about spirituality, focusing on light. Do you do the same with darkness?
At the risk of sounding like an emo high schooler, maybe more within, and that's evident in the earlier work, I would hope, but these were more about thinking about the role of light as it reveals form, as it sort of, pulls it out of space.
I love emo high schoolers. I'm gonna ask you one more question. Did you discover the lack of face-head identity over the course of the process in both sets of works we are seeing, or was a certain anonymity already in the image in your ideation?
Yeah, that started a lot early in a lot of my works, and one thing I found was that a face contains a lot of signs and means of recognizing a subject that I think detracted from the work I was trying to do with the body and represent through the body. I think skin, musculature, bone structure all have this amazing capacity to channel, like a medium or a topography, the sort of psychic forces that pass through the body. And the attention that I feel needs to be paid to the body's capacity to represent those forces is lost when a face is present, because we then focus on the face, the expression, the emotion, the identity behind that face.
Wow. Thanks, Karl.
Totally. Thank you.
Next up, we have Krista Grenawalt. Krista.
Hi, everyone. Let me share the screen here. All right. Can you all hear me okay? All right. For those who don't know me, my name is Krista Grenawalt. I'm a first-generation Californian born in San Francisco. As an artist, about 10 years ago, I expanded my painting practice from oil, landscape, and plein air to going outside and painting in acrylic on oversized canvases on the ground overlooking the Pacific Ocean. When painting outside, I use the environment to mix with the plastic pigments. So often, elements such as dirt, bark, grass, sand, or ocean water will become a part of the piece. The opportunity to be at SFAI Fort Mason campus, creating over the bay and sharing work among other artists has been so highly impactful in my experience in complicating my vision and experimentation and presentation. It also heightened my awareness of how much environment impacts creative process and collaboration. My current work really is a focus on liminal space as a place for pause. Where land meets sea, there's a disorientation, a malleable situation. And in that experience, there's an opportunity for a more stable relationship to atmosphere. So coming into the studio at Fort Mason or the gallery allows a new perspective to experience this vastness in detail. This next slide shows the upper atrium at Fort Mason, where in spring 2019, I installed 12 acrylic paintings on unstretched canvas to fit between the walkways, titled "Regenerate, Energy is All Around." In fall 2019 and winter 2020, I went downstairs with installations in the lower atrium, where I considered the space, the architecture in relationship to details I was tracking, like the decomposing whales in Point Reyes, or plastic bags that are howling on the water surface outside. I took the canvases done outdoors, cut them in half and restretched them, and then placed them back together over a crevice in the wall to highlight this desire to control nature in this way. In the Anthropocene, the beauty is in the toxicity found in nature that has been normalized, like a setting sun, for example. In the studio, I was able to experiment with particulate pollution, charcoal, metals, and plastics to further consider what is in the air that results in health or harm. In winter 2020, I installed a transparent toxic mylar that hung in the gallery space. Many of you have seen it. And you could look through it to the bay water outside, as well as it projecting imagery, this molecular kind of imagery onto the gallery wall. So through this texture and layering, the movement of the pigments, material from the air was caught between this kind of cosmic and microscopic repetition of form, to kind of highlight these forces that are out of our control. They're intimately tied to the air that we breathe and the cells in our bodies. The cycles are both generative and destructive, a layering of organic forms against a backdrop of environmental disruption. So thank you all. It's been such a pleasure. You can find more of my recent work on my website, and please feel free to be in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Krista. There's a burning question here. Is the odor of the plastic significant in your work?
You can smell different things. I think when I'm outside, you're not as aware of it, but definitely in the space of Fort Mason, you can be aware of these things. I don't know if you could smell it in the exhibition spaces itself, but definitely the texture of it.
Mm-hmm. Here's another question here. Is the liminal space the intersection of what we control versus what we cannot also?
Or just a threshold to, that sense of pause, waiting to see what's possible next.
Mm-hmm. We have another question. Have you also thought of projecting light through it on a bigger space, micro, macro?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I have to say, I really wanted to tie it to the space at Fort Mason because I was so inspired by the environment and the community. And I think it really highlighted to me when you have opportunities to show in different spaces that you really are inspired to create and present work in new ways. And so I really feel grateful for the opportunity I have to, create work that wouldn't have been created otherwise, or shown in a way that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do otherwise.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Krista.
Thank you.
We have another Q&A session. We've asked a lot of burning questions, but if there's some more questions for this particular group, for Jane, Colin, Anna, Evan, Karl, Christa, there are some questions that we didn't get to before, which I'll start with those if you all have some questions to fill in the chat. Maria Elena had asked you, Colin, to talk about the architecture of the image, implicit and explicit.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm interested in photographing architecture, one, because it totally dictates kind of how we navigate our world. So I don't really have an exact answer to your question, Maria Elena, unfortunately, but I think I'm drawn to architecture for that reason. And I think I'm also interested in kind of playing between that line between kind of having architectural work that is seemingly, a non, post-production photograph, but then also having work that's architectural, that's very much about the post-production process. So I think kind of as I'm moving forward post-grad school, that's definitely kind of an avenue that I'm interested in exploring further.
Thank you, Colin. There was another question that was in the chat before. I think, actually, I think it was one that and I had already answered in the chat, but I'll go to Karl. Is there a strategy towards universality?
Oh, yeah, no. I just typed the answer to Maria Elena privately, but no, God, not at all. I would never. I think that's really dangerous with art. I think the beauty of art is its ability to represent individual, rich, subjective experiences, and any attempt at universality is incredibly oppressive and dangerous.
Thanks, Karl. Christa, I'm intrigued by your process working outdoors and how it expands your practice. How do you feel about your indoor art making now?
It can be limiting in some ways, but I think the experimentation that happened in graduate school with different materiality that I wouldn't have access to outside, has added a different area of exploration and layering with what I do outdoors.
There was another question here. Do they do the interactive installations with projections? Question mark. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, that was Christopher Coppola mentioned.
Okay.
Art lab, but I think, were you talking about Team Lab? They do interactive, giant interactive installations with projections and through materials.
All right. I have a question for you, Karl. And could you talk a little bit about, I just remember from your review, and we've talked about humor, and that might not always be the first thing that people go to when they think about your work. Do you feel like there's humor in your work?
Maybe not these things. That was a tough combo and a really helpful one. And I wish I could have shown some of the performances I got to do, and which was like one of the best things I think about SFAI was how supportive the community was and faculty were in trying new media.
But there's so much about falling in humor.
Yeah.
You know?
I think like, I don't know, falling is hilarious because I think it is one of the best embodiments of earnest effort met with tragic failure, and I think falling is a great way to subvert and rip the ground out from beneath otherwise confident and certain and sort of rooted senses of identity or selfhood. I can probably yield a better answer with more time. Think about it.
We're going to extend this question till 2 a.m.
Sorry, everyone.
Just to pull out your inner emo high school self. We want that.
Yeah, great. I'll cover my eyes more. And
are there any other questions out there? We have a few more minutes with this group before we wrap up. Evan, I got a question for you. I got a question for you. When you were talking, your artist statement, at the end, it's struck me when you use the word stain and how you can you talk more about how time and memory stain us?
Sure. In the statement, I'm specifically talking about the feeling of place being something that can stain us, but I think that also time and memory are a part of the way that we interact with place, and so they also can stain us, and do. I think what I'm feeling when I say that is that the everything that I interact with stays with me, and it's sort of this like cumulative feeling of just like gathering this like weight of the experiences that we have, and the way that like memory and time build that weight, so it's, I suppose, this feeling that the places that I go continue to affect me even when I've left them or like discarded the experiences that I had in them. There's something sort of like irreparably changed by my having been in a certain place or space, and that kind of staining, the feeling of being like altered permanently, is what interests me endlessly. That's what I'm making work about ultimately.
Mm-hmm. There was a question earlier that Christopher Coppola posed to the earlier group, but I feel like it could be posed to everybody, asking about if grad students would be interested or could see themselves collaborating on a community SFAI all art forms project.
Weren't the last 3 years that already?
That's what tonight is.
Isn't that what's continuing right now?
Can I just add to that I am so impressed with both of these vernissages. I wrote it there that I am moved, I'm thinking, I'm teased all by sensibilities. All of you not only have shown beauty, but also thought. And that means a lot to me. And I do think SFAI has something to do with that than other schools. So I only asked that question because everybody knows that SFAI is dealing with the problems that many, many art schools are dealing with. And I see you all as ambassadors, even though you're leaving, ambassadors of our school. I went there, I love the school, I will always love the school, and I will always try to help the school. And I hear from all of you that it affected you as well. So the idea of all of you figuring something out to carry on the message, to carry on, you know, what SFAI is to other people, particularly young people, young people, high school people, is important. And I can see all of your work has something that relates to each other. And that's the only reason why I said it. And when you leave, and just remember that, stay in contact with all of your peers so that maybe, just maybe, you can connect with other people, because I am seeing it in your work. I'm seeing the community, I'm seeing the connections, I'm seeing the individuality. And bravo to you. I'm so impressed. And I've been impressed with many vernissages, but I have to say, even it has nothing to do with being online, though it doesn't make it intimate, but all this work connects. And that's what we need right now. We need artists to be individual, but to connect as a community. And you all are doing that. And I can tell. So that's the only reason why I said that. I won't say any more, but bravo to all of you. I am so proud of you. I wish I got to study from you in my own way, but I studied from a few of you, and I've learned a lot, and it goes both ways. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Christopher. I think we have reached the end of our amazing virtual MFA. What is the name of this event? Vernissage.
Virtual burn.
Woo!
Lindsey, thank you so much, Lindsey, and congratulations to everyone. This is the courageousness of your convictions and your individuality, and just how you are, each one of you, so out there in your own incredibly talented way. It blows me away. I'm so pleased I'm proud, really, to see all of your work. It's inspiring. It's very inspiring. So
yes, congratulations.
One of you, it's hard to write something that's really eloquent and thoughtful really fast, as each of you is showing your work, and respond in quickly in a way that really is, because each person that shows their work, you're still thinking and digesting each work, and you're already into the next person, and it's so hard to really let each person know how their work has touched you and how you're thinking about it in this format. So I think you may get more comments later after this is over, when we all are still thinking about it, able to write something more articulate.
No, Jeremy, it's easy to write. It's easy to write. You write checks to support the artists. We need food. You just graduated.
Take a moment.
You guys, I like to see you back in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years. I want to see what kind of work you're producing. That would be amazing. So please come back.
Yes,
we have a date, 10 years, okay? So
we look forward to following your work. We look forward to following your work and supporting you, and welcome to being alumni of SFAI.
I also want to take this moment to thank Zaina and Nikki for putting together not only one, but two of these Vernissage events. It's been really positive and such a wonderful experience for everyone. Thank you for organizing. It's not easy. And thanks to John for hosting last week, and the group of grad students that presented, and thanks to all the grads that shared this week. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Lindsey.
Thank you for hosting.
Congratulations, everyone.
Congratulations, everyone.